Welcome to the roller coaster of midlife, live on YouTube today. And joining me, as she does each Tuesday, is Holly Boxenhorn.
Hey, Lucy.
Hey, Holly. Yeah, I forgot to say my name. I'm Lucy Q. Or did I say it and have a menopause there?
No, I don't think you did.
Oh, the state of the world.
Yes.
So today we're going to carry on from our conversation last week.
Okay.
Last week, we were talking about what it actually feels like to be stuck, because a lot of people, they may realize that they're in an uncomfortable position, but they don't really have, the words to put towards it. So if you're catching this video, go back and watch last week's episode where we talk about what it feels like to be stuck, because today what we're going to do is we're going to jump in and uncover those strategies that you can use to help get yourself unstuck. Now, I found myself stuck. Well, I think you call being Holly, would you call being at rock bottom stuck?
Yes, I would call that being stuck.
That's being stuck between a rock and a hard place.
Yeah.
So I'm going to share what I did when I was at rock bottom, and Holly is going to share how she would generally coach somebody through sort of getting that unstuck. So maybe Holly, maybe we could start with if one of your clients comes to you and you sort of acknowledge, I'm stuck.
Yeah. Okay. So as we talked about last week, like stuck is a broad term. And the truth is we all get stuck. We get stuck many times at different times of our lives. And then we also talked about the concept of getting very specific about your stuckness. We talked about emotional granularity, getting very specific what we are feeling stuck about, right? So that's really very vital piece of the equation. So in order to get unstuck, we have to understand and accept our current circumstances. That's number one, is acceptance. Now, I really want to make this very, very clear. There is a big difference between acceptance and resignation. We are not resigning ourselves to our circumstances. We are accepting our current circumstances, whether it's I feel unfulfilled because of my relationship with my spouse or partner, my children are leaving home, my health, whatever it is, we need to accept our current circumstances. If we don't accept, then we can never, as I talked about last time, accurately or strategically help ourselves, because then we're just operating from a place that's not reality. We're either sugarcoating, we're minimizing, we're downplaying, we're not really being real with ourselves with, why are we stuck? Once we come to that, really accept, like once we really just accept that I'm feeling really shitty because of X, Y, and Z, or I feel stuck because this or that, then we can start to put steps into play to get unstuck. But the first step has to be acceptance. And I reiterate, not resignation, because then you wouldn't be coaching with me, because we don't resign ourselves to anything, right? The shit's going to come, the stuckness is going to come, the curveballs are going to come. Undoubtedly, no one is excused from it. So let's accept our circumstances, as shitty as they may be, and then we can start moving forward. That would be the first step in my coaching program.
So you've sort of helped me reframe what I was thinking, because you're right. There was a step before what I thought was my first step, but I guess my first step was surrender.
Okay.
And again, that's not a surrender as in giving up, but it's acknowledging, that goes back to acknowledging where you are.
Yeah.
Admitting that I was in a really bad place, because I had done all of those things that you had mentioned. I had been sugarcoating, I'd been pretending, I'd been faking, I'd been putting on a smile, I'd been numbing, I did all of those things.
Right.
And when I was broken down to my most raw self, that's when I had no other choice but to surrender.
I think surrender is a great word, because I don't think that's resigning. It's kind of like a leaning into the discomfort. And I think you have to lean into the discomfort. You have to just exist with it. And I think you raise a really good point, because there's something, that's where I'm not a fan of toxic positivity, where, we just, persevere, and pull up our big girl panties and just suck it up. Because here's the thing, we could rationalize to death, oh, I should be grateful that X, Y, and Z, or I should be happy and this is okay. But yet, like, we feel a lack of, we feel stuck, we feel something's not right. So there is a dance that we do in the beginning. We want to try to pep ourselves up. Maybe, we want to go to maybe, well, if I just do this, or if I just do that, maybe I'll feel a little better. And then we are like, oh no, that's just not working. I can't. And it's a good thing to try to see the glass as half full. That's a good, positive thing to do. But if we're not being realistic, then we're going to just settle for mediocrity or worse, just accepting less than.
Yeah. And you mentioned guilt.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that I felt a lot of, is that, and I felt ashamed.
Yeah, for sure.
That I was in this place, because I did have all of these good things going for me. And I felt ashamed that it wasn't enough, that I wasn't enough, that all of these, so that sort of dance that goes on, it's it's like being in a tilter world, you're off balance.
And that's such a common thing with midlife women, not only if like their life is, good in other aspects, but yet they still feel, stuck, but also in a sense of like, I am X amount of years old. I should have it all figured out by now. I have done X, Y, and Z, checked all the boxes, and I should be in a better place. There's so much guilt and shame around that, because we were spoon-fed the belief that, these golden years were supposed to be golden. And if we did X, Y, and Z, we would arrive and be able to just be, alas, happy. And that's one of the biggest mistakes of midlife women, is thinking that they should know better by now, or should have it figured out by now. And that's bullshit, like big time bullshit. Like, you're never going to have it figured out. Like, you're never
we're all on our own journey. And I often joke and say I'm a slow learner. It takes me a while, but once I get there, I get there. And, I can now look at that and chuckle.
Yeah.
There was a point in time I'd beat myself up for it. Why aren't you smarter? Why haven't you figured this out? Why can't you get your shit together? What's wrong with you?
Try being a coach. Try being and being stuck. Why? Yeah. I definitely know better.
That would be a bit of imposter syndrome.
I'm a former practicing social psychotherapist. What's the fuck is wrong with you, Holly? You should know. I should know. If anyone should know better, I should know better. Okay, so if I don't accept my circumstances, that I'm stuck, I'm only just going to keep whipping myself and whipping myself and whipping myself. And I'm never going to get that support or help that I need to get myself out of this feeling. So we all do it. We do it. But I'm kind of done with doing it, because I realize I will be here again, and I will be here again, and I will be here again. But with each stop, I'm much more well equipped to get back on my feet. That's what I believe. And I've stopped kidding myself that, alas, I will arrive. Like, that just is not going to happen. I'm always going to be figuring it out. My life, I'm changing constantly. So therefore, there's new things to figure out as I'm changing. So rather than believing that I'm supposed to figure it out, I'm kind of like on this journey. Like, this is just going to be what it is. I think you got to lean in.
Yeah, yeah, you do.
To it. What was the word you used? You used
surrender.
Surrender.
Yeah, and I take it back to, not that I'm a spiritual person. I'm not sort of a churchy religious person, but Carrie Underwood had a song, and it was Jesus, take the wheel.
Yeah.
And for me, those words, it does speak to just like, I can't do this. I can't do this. I need help.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's just it. Here's the thing. You can't do it alone, because we get in the way of ourselves. So even someone who has over 20 years of experience in the helping industry cannot do it herself. I can't get out of my own way. I need help. We all need help. It's the way it goes. you need the support. You cannot do this alone. We're not meant to do it alone. From the dawn of time, people survived because they relied on each other. And that is the truth. But then it's finding the right, supports. That's key.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So after we go through that understand and acceptance, what would you say is number 2?
Well, gets a little complicated because I don't want to get too much into my program because it's going to absorb the whole live. But I move people to what I call an energy level. There's different energy levels that I work with people, and it's from 1 to 7, and primarily work through 1 to 5. And generally 1 is when we feel victim, we feel stuck, and we feel like we can't move, which is negative in connotation, but it's understandable. You have to almost honor the suck. Then the next level, which is level 2, which is also catabolic in nature, negative and draining if we stay there that long. But it's also a very good level to get some piss and vinegar underneath us and say, God damn it, I will not be resigned. This will not be my defining moment. This is bullshit. I haven't come this far to come this far. This is bullshit. So I move people energetically to hopefully get to a place where they can start saying, I want to fight the fight. I want to do what I need to do to roll up my sleeves and get busy because I deserve more. Self-love goes back to the self-love and self-worth we've talked about on other lives. I am worth this. And also the reality that people just have to be normalized. Like, people are under this delusional reality that there's something wrong with them, that they're broken. They don't understand that this is the human condition. We all go through this. I don't care if you're Oprah Winfrey, Tony Robbins, we all go through it. The difference between those people is they just have the resources to get over it quicker. They experience it too. So it's getting that piss and vinegar behind you saying, I am worth it. I will not be resigned to this, so that you can get out of that victim-like mentality, start to take some responsibility and seek support, education, resources to start busting a move. Make sense?
Yeah, definitely. And again, that all sort of encompasses what I would say my second step was. And after I had that moment of surrender and acknowledging that this isn't working, I went through a process of, well, if not this, then what?
Right.
And that's when I developed, the more common terms that I found more recently about this. I developed a vision of my future self. Well, if not this, then who did I want to be?
Right.
What did I want my life to be?
Right.
And, again, there is so much encapsulated in just that, in that vision and what it entailed. And, I've spoken before about going through my process of creating affirmations and tying them to my why, which eventually became my why formations. But all of that was built on that vision of my future self.
Yep.
And those were the things, that's where I got my piss and vinegar from. I became excited.
Yeah.
Because I could see, I could feel, I could touch that future person.
Right. See, now you're starting to shift to level 3, what I would call. So level 2 is still negative, because when you're angry and we're combative and we're like pissed off, if we continue to stay in that state, it will drain us, right? Because we're just angry and conflictual. But we need that initial piss and vinegar to reclaim, throw the gauntlet down, like I say, so that we can start then moving up energetically in these levels. Now, when I'm talking about energetically, I'm not talking about the fluff. I think you're familiar with my energy levels, right?
I think we've talked about them before on this show.
Right. It's more about how we're showing up. It's when I talk about energy, it's at how we're showing up at any given moment in our lives, feeling victim, angry, combative. Then we start moving to level 3, which is good. It's anabolic. It's positive in nature. We start taking responsibility. We start seeing possibilities. And then we look at our strengths. What attributes, strengths, characteristics do I have that I can build on, so that I can get to my next best version of myself, because there's always a next and a next and a next, right? So it's to our next best level of ourselves, because a lot of this research talks about, leaning in to our strengths, not focusing so much on our gaps and our weaknesses. That's where the good stuff is. And we spend too much time trying to, focus on what's wrong with us, opposed to what's right with us and how can we build on that. And that's where that whole level 3 energy comes up, and we start seeing more of the possibilities and taking responsibility, and moving more, up and up and up energetically.
And again, I can completely tie into what I did, because if I look at what I did next is I created a ritual around putting myself first. And that started with putting myself first in the day. And I created a journaling practice, and a mindful practice that I started each and every day with, because when you start your day putting yourself first, you're subconsciously telling yourself of that priority that you have. And within that, that ties back to self-care, ties back to self-love. It ties back to taking that journey inwards and honoring who we are. And instead of searching in our outer world for answers, we're turning inward to
you bring
explore.
up a really good point. You're talking about some great tools. So like all along, as I'm working the coaching program and sharing people, these talking about educating them on the energy levels. First of all, everyone starts with an assessment. So they have a general sense of where they're operating, what their perspective is at this current time. But you're talking about tools, real tools to lean into. And that's vital through this whole process of coaching, whether it's affirmations, whether it's journaling. These are things that will ground us and secure us. And they're vast, and there's different tools that we can use. Some, people, there are common ones that I think resonate for most people. And then, you have to realize, some things are going to land for you more than other things. So there's all the tools that are being shared along the way so that you can continue to build on that energy, that higher level of energy, so that all of a sudden you start seeing yourself moving into opportunities now. Not now we're seeing through all this gross, tumultuous stuff that you're going through, how much it's brought opportunity to keep peeling back the layers and learn more about yourself and more about what you want. Right. So that's really important. Without the tools, it's going to be hard to get anywhere.
Yeah, you definitely, in some sense, the tools draw out those, we may think about certain things and have questions and what is that word? Remunerate in our head, go over and over.
Ruminate? Yeah.
Ruminate? No. Is that another word for our list of words we can't pronounce?
It might be.
You have to get it out. And whether you're talking about it or you're writing about it or you're using art, you have to draw those energies out of your body.
You do. And journaling is a beautiful concept, because it's like having a therapist 24 hours, 24/7. And you'd be surprised when you put pen to paper, how powerful it is and how revealing when you just free flow, what comes to light and what you learn about it. You learn about yourself in particular. But yeah, there's a lot of tools, and because you can't wish it away. You can't hope, and just say like you kind of talked about it before, in about a year, I'll say it a lot of the times when I'll start off with clients. If you and I were talking about it's 6 months to a year from now, and we're celebrating because everything you talked about came to fruition. What would that feel like? What would that look like? You have to have a vision, right? You have to have the vision, but you got to put the tools into place in order to get there, the habits into place. One of your habits was journaling, which was very empowering for you. So what are those habits we're going to put into place that will get us there to a point where, we're at that vision, and you start pulling back, more and more of the gunk and start seeing the shine, so to say.
Yeah. And that gunk is kind of what I got into for my 4th step. And that was, it involved my mindset.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
because, it's like you said, step two, we're full of piss and vinegar.
Mhm.
And we start creating these habits, and we start creating these rituals for ourselves, and we're like, go, go, go. And then you start uncovering those shadows that we have within ourselves, those things that we might not like to look at very often, those things that we've tucked away into the closet.
Yeah.
And we have to pull them out. And
Yeah.
every time you pull something out of the closet to air it out, deal with it, release it, whatever your journey is, you're going to come across the limiting beliefs. You are going to be dealing with your inner critic. You are going to hear from your inner child. You are, you're going to be going through all of these different things, and it's not linear. All
No.
of these things sort of pop up. So as they pop up, once you understand what a limiting belief is, once you understand what your inner critic is, then you can better identify where it's coming from and how you work through it.
Yeah. I think
But
they make a good point. Growth is not linear. We zig up and we zig down. And that's part and parcel of like why
I was just all over.
Right, exactly.
There's no
Yeah.
zigging up and down.
This is where
There's a
the
shitstorm.
knowledge and the education about the energy levels, because let's just say I'm in a good, like I'm not stuck. But my awareness of the energy levels is usually helpful to me on the smallest levels. Like, for example, if I'm driving in the car and I'm going to visit my mother who's got Alzheimer's and assisted living, and I'm not in a good place as it is because it's always a hard ride, right? And then I hit mega traffic and I'm bitching, I'm moaning, and I'm like, energetically, I realize I'm at level 1 or 2. I'm at 1 because I feel bad that I have to go visit my mother and I have to travel 5,000 miles to get there to see her, and I always have to hit traffic. But my awareness that being at level 1, being a victim, is not going to help me any, right? So I bring myself up to level 2 where I get like angry enough being like, okay, this is bullshit. This is my reality. So I'm going to have to learn how to deal with the traffic and the fact that I have to drive 5,000 miles to visit my mother in assisted living and have a very difficult conversation because it's always hard every time I go. So I have to get angry and be like, I'm not going to be, so this is it. So I can't experience joy and happiness anymore. I can't live my life. No, that's not. So the bullshit, that's where the level 2 is. Then I start saying my level 3 is, well, at least my mother is in assisted living and she's okay. And she's being cared for, right? So I start seeing the glass is half full. I start taking responsibility. Then I go to level 4. And again, I know that no one understands the level. And I start exuding a little bit of self-love and compassion and saying, well, it's completely understandable you'd be upset like this, Holly, based on your circumstances. But these are your circumstances. Where's the opportunity in this? Then all of a sudden, on a motherfucking level 5, where that's the sweet spot of all sweet spot, because I see it as an absolute opportunity. And my mother's diagnosis with Alzheimer's was a reckoning. If you want to talk about hitting bottom, that was me. It brought up so much shit because I was a former control freak. Well, you give a former control freak, your mother's diagnosis of Alzheimer's, which you have no control over on a daily basis, what's going to happen? And you have to deal with 2 sisters who are completely different people and making this all work and getting into assisted living. And I got no control of shit now. So I was thrown into the deep end of no control. Lucy, the best thing that ever happened to me in my life, because I had to get help. I was like, you are freaking the fuck out because you can't be in control. And this is your time to face it head on. And I told you, I hit bottom. I was like, every trigger was going off inside me. And then I was like, you know what? This is an opportunity because the universe is saying, ha ha, Holly, sorry, you don't have control. And this is your situation. This is your time to learn how to deal with lack of control. Best thing that ever happened to me. So there you see me climbing up the ladder of energy levels, but energy is normal. It vacillates. Level 1 and 2 is normal. Just understanding that's where you're at so that you can start shifting and moving yourself and having the keys to understanding how to handle your energy. That's why I love the energy levels, because even after you work with me, I'd love to say you're fine, but another curveball is going to come your way. I want you to be able to be prepared and handle each curveball that comes your way so that you can handle every transition and just up your game. Just become a better goddamn version of yourself every time. Understood? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I am, because I'm chuckling because number 5 for me was embrace change.
Exactly. Oh my God, we are so on the same page. It's a different language.
And
That's the sweet spot, baby.
this goes back to, on so many levels, is you embrace change and you embrace that you will continuously evolve and change. And, once you reach one peak, there's going to be a new one that you want to climb to. That doesn't go away. And I feel back on saying, when you know better, you do better.
Oh,
That
I agree.
each time we level up, you can't
100%.
look back and criticize the person that you were, because you didn't know what you know now.
Well, what's really funny, I have actually a pretty vulgar, I maybe have to share this with you. I say this a lot to my clients. Once you pull your head out of your ass, you can't put it back in. It's pretty graphic. But once you get self-awareness, once you gain tools, you could try to go back to level 1 and level 2. You could try, but you can't stay there for long, because you
the difference.
Choice. There are other options how to show up energetically. You just have to lean into the tools, but you have to honor the fluidity of the energy levels. And energy is fluid any given day. Like, just for example, the other day I stubbed my toe. I wound up breaking my toe. So of course, energetically, like, I was feeling a little bit like, oh, great. Now I'm not going to be able to work out. Now I can't put on a spin shoe. I can't get on my shoes. I can't, but I was like, okay, that's not going to really serve me well for a period of time. But I had every right to feel pissed off and angry and bad for myself, right? So energy is happening every day, all day long, 24/7. It's just, I could say in a heartbeat, oh, Holly, you're definitely at 1 or 2. And then what are you going to do about it? Are you going to give yourself the pity party? Maybe. Solid 30-minute pity party, I'm all on board. Maybe a 30-minute temper tantrum, level 2, I'm all aboard. I'll even say to my clients, I'll talk to you about 30 minutes. Go have a pity party. We'll talk in about a few minutes. We'll talk whenever, next week. Pity party this week. That's it. Then we'll talk business. Every level is understandable, but it doesn't serve us to stick in that 1 and 2 level energy. That's where you can start to understand how to creep yourself back up and find that beautiful sweet spot, level 5. Level 5 is what I love, live and breathe. There are 2 other levels above 5, but they're a bit nirvana-like. I don't really think people can exist in level 6 and 7. There's very few people. Those people, if you are existing there, tend to be Buddha-like. They live in the mountains, not in Long Island, New York. Not in the world of this tumultuous nature of this challenge. I know 2 people who exist in level 6 and 7 most times. I love them dearly. They're genuinely in 6 and 7. That's kind of like when everything is okay, everything is great, but they come off so detached.
I was just going to say, that's
unreal.
That's not why we're here.
I don't really even like to listen, I tell women, listen, 6 and 7 is doable. And it's nice to even have moments of that. Like, that's like when that synergy is there and you feel like at 1 and everything is great. But let's face it, how long does that last?
It doesn't last, but that's not what we're here. We're here for the human experience. Exactly. And the human experience goes through all of those things. It is raw. And we're here to experience them so we can learn and grow. Yeah. And once you sort of move through this for the first time, as you said, once you get your head out your ass, you can't go back in the sense where you can't live with your head in your ass anymore. Yes, your head, you can bend over and your head might get close, but that's when you that's where that resiliency comes in, is because you're sitting there, you're like, no, wait a second, Lucy.
Exactly.
You know where you are.
Exactly. You can't kid yourself. You've been here.
You just take yourself through the steps. Yeah. And I'm sort of at the point where, I think I've said this before, where I refer to my human self, my spiritual self. So my spiritual self will kick in and say, okay, Lucy, this is your human self. This is what you're going through. Remember the process. Remember, this is not forever. And I basically self-coach myself through the
It's funny, you
process.
have a lot of instinctual tools that you use that you don't even realize those are like actually coaching tools because you don't even realize it. So you're talking about like these two selves that you have. So there's a great tool that is out there. Actually, there's a book out on this. It's called the alter ego effect. I forgot the gentleman's name who writes it, but one of the tools I'll give my clients is to establish an alter ego. Sometimes that could be someone that they might know, who they admire and inspire. It could be a movie character. It could be a made up person, but who's your alter ego that when faced with adversity, like you want to resemble how they would show up? Like, who is that? And this is going to sound very, very, this is going to go completely off base, but my alter ego, are you a fan of Yellowstone?
Yes.
Okay. So do you know the sequels, 1860?
No, I haven't watched them yet. No.
Okay. So there's a young girl, because this goes back before Yellowstone
The
existed.
pre-story, yeah.
Right, the pre-story. And her name is Elsa. She's a young girl. And she's gorgeous, drop dead gorgeous, but that's not the reason why I'm attracted to her. But she is the narrator also of the story. And she's beautiful and deep and raw and crying, but tough and strong. Like, you'd only understand it if you know her. She is bearing her, like her heart is on her sleeve, wide open, but she is taking that and using that to fuel her and show up and endure more magnificently than ever. If you understood Elsa, you will know what I mean. She reminds me, like, she's my alter ego. That woman who just like opens her heart, rips it like wide open, but yet uses it as stepping stones, admitting the hardness of it all, feeling it, crying, sobbing, feeling the rawness of it, but still engaged and participating in her life. I can't explain it because you have to know the character.
Okay, now I'm going to have to go watch it.
First of all, it's great. You'll love it. And especially if you love Yellowstone.
Because I love Yellowstone, but there's a certain element that whenever they do a backstory and they mess with the story, you're like, I always go back to Star Wars.
Yeah.
That was such a great 3 movies, and they just went back and they butchered it, and they've gone back and butchered it every year since then.
You're not going to be disappointed. They're both, okay. There's 2 of them, but start with that one. Elsa, love that woman.
What was it? 1812 you called it?
Yeah, it was the first prequel. And then they came out with a second one, which I think was 1923 or something like that.
Okay.
Also very good. But I think that was like
I'll go back to the 1800s.
I don't remember. You're going to like it. Anyway, but again, no one has to have Elsa as their alter ego.
No, but it's just having that person that resonates with you, that you can, and again, I don't know why I keep having these Jesus references, but it was like, it goes back to what would Jesus do?
Well,
it's like for you, what would Elsa do?
Like you think it's silly, like, oh, Holly, alter ego, but like this is exactly what we're talking about. Like, we have to dig deep. So like we got to pull out everything we possibly can to help us, whether it's journaling, whether it's an alter ego, whether you got to pull out the tools. And that's what I'm saying. So you, like, a lot of times as we've been doing lives, you'll reference things that you have done that you're not even aware that they're legitimate coaching tools that people.
Well, I'm going to be honest.
Yeah.
I'm just going to put it out there. And this might be a little bit too woo for some people.
What?
But I believe that I channel it in some capacity.
Why is that too woo?
With some people, because I go back to that day of surrender for me when I first created these Y formations. I had no background. I have zero knowledge of therapy, psychotherapy, psychology, anything like that. I've watched a few videos on YouTube, yet somehow I've been able to assemble all of these practices and start putting them in place for myself that I later on find out are deeply rooted in, neuroplasticity and all of the sciences of things.
Yes.
On some level, I believe that there was that fateful day, there was somebody else present with me. I was not alone. And I believe that a lot of the time this is coming, and maybe this is a past version of myself. I don't know.
Yeah. I don't think that's crazy. I don't think that's off the charts. I think this is where, you can lean into manifestation. Like people like manifestation, that's bullshit. But you have to understand energy attracts like energy. That's the nature of the law of energy. Like that's just the way the world works. I mean, that's how, Newton discovered, gravity. So this is truth. So, and that's why sometimes when we're in a funk, we continue to be in a funk because we're attracting that energy. We're looking for evidence that the world sucks, that my situation sucks. This is where mindset comes in. So again, I'm a fan of acceptance, accepting our circumstances. But if we continue to just sit in that energy, then we're only going to remain in that energy because we're then not looking for evidence that something else is possible. So there's a lot involved. It's not as simple as, and that's why, I have a coaching program, because it's not like, like sometimes people say to me, I do an email and I share a lot of information in that. People say, like, don't give away the cow. Like, what is the expression? Only give the
Don't
milk.
give away the milk when you can get the cow for free.
Right. So I share a lot just in those letters. And the truth is, you read it all and do it all, but if you're not coaching, you're not gonna be able to figure it out. Like we get in our own way. Like you need to do this with someone. I need to do it with someone. I can't get out of my own way. So you can believe that you can, but that's where you're always going to find yourself butting up against. Why am I back here? Why am I back here? You got to.
It goes back to community.
Yeah, you got to have a tool belt. You got to have resources. You have to have resources.
Now, Holly, as we sort of wrap up here, do you want to share a little bit more about your coaching program and how people can get in touch with you?
Yeah, I think your best bet is booking a discovery call with me. I always do a complimentary discovering call because I want to make sure that you're a right fit. That the way I coach is resonates with you. I also have two options how to work with me in a group setting versus private one-on-one. So, what's the best option for you, vanilla or chocolate? All depends on your preferences. So we can talk more about that. And this way there's like no strings attached, and then we can also cut to the chase because I have already discovered a lot about you in the discovery call. So if you decide to move forward, we're off and running because we've already had a lot under our belt.
Beautiful. And to connect with Holly, make sure you check out the show notes. I'm going to have all of her links in there. And I also invite you to check out my website, therollercoasterpodcast.com. If you click on the tab that says start here, you will be able to get my free course called 3 Steps to Go from Hot Mess to Badass and Start Rocking Midlife. And this basically is an audio program that outlines some of what I did to pull myself out from, where I talked about being at that moment of surrender to where I am now. So again, check out the show notes. I'm going to have all of the links in there. And remember to like, share, and comment on this video if you're enjoying it, because the more that we can change the algorithms and connect with more women, the more power that we have in our community. So until next Tuesday, have a fantastic week.
Bye, Lucy.